Good evening, everyone. Welcome to TRH, the Reconnection Hour by Mr. Perfect. Sorry for the slight delay. I was having a couple of tech issues with my camera. If it goes a little bit slow or doesn't work, just put in the comments and I'll see if I can change it. But you're obviously aware of what Mr. Perfect is. Most of you watching, we bring men together at barbecues, not right now, but usually to create communities and connection for the betterment of mental health and to stop isolation for men as well. What is TRH? Well, we decided some time ago that we need to serve our sort of online community a bit more and give you some value, and that we are not mental health professionals in any sense of the word. And a big part of what we do on TRH is chat to health professionals, mainly mental health professionals, psychologists, GPs, psychiatrists, psychiatry doctors, you name it. And yeah, so tonight we've got one coming on, which is incredible. But first, I'll give you a little bit of an update of the week that has been for me and Mr. Perfect. We had a good chat with the guys at the AMHF, the Australian Men's Health Forum, who've been a big support of us. For anyone who doesn't know who they basically are representative of all men's health groups in Australia. You name it, small and large ones, mainly not-for-profits, charities, some enterprises as well, but they do some incredible work in showcasing what everyone does. And at the moment, because their men's health gathering was cancelled, it was supposed to be in Melbourne in May, they have gone full gung-ho on bringing together everyone online. So I've got to chat with a lot of other people in the space, which has been incredible. So I had an online webinar with them today, which basically summarized a survey they did to what has changed with COVID. How have you adapted to online? And the general summary was quite positive. Definitely that a lot of people just had to overnight change their services, or some unfortunately had to shut up shop for a while before they could get online and offer some services. Others have found it really hard to get that same connection with their groups. And if they're doing more formal training and education, even harder. We're very lucky that ours is, we don't really do any education as such. It's very non-clinical and more about connection. So really good input from that. We'll be doing an online men's health event soon, so I'll let you guys know when that is. So I might be speaking at that, which would be incredible. Tomorrow I'm going on the Blokes Psychology podcast or live stream. Carl Nelms, who's a psychologist who runs that in Melbourne, he came on a couple of weeks ago on TRH. Great guy, one of our best chats, and I'm going to go on that. So I'll let you know when that goes live. We're going to do a t-shirt giveaway at the end of the week. I know a couple of weeks ago I put it out there that we were going to give away a few of them. I've got a ton in the background here that are taking up space. I'm going to announce that. And also something I was going to mention, one of our barbecue hosts, Jimmy Hayes, who does our Coogee barbecue, he is also he's been coming to a lot of our online barbecues as well on Sundays, which has been great. He mentioned that he is part of a charity or a movement, I guess, that started up called Feed Our Medics, which is quite relevant right now, and that is basically raising money for on twofold really, to make sure that cafes stay in business, and the money that they're raising is going to them to provide meals to hospitals across Sydney for our health workers that are doing ridiculous hours and putting themselves in a lot of danger and risk. So love to give that a shout out, Feed Our Medics. If you just type that into Facebook, you will come across it, but I'll send the link later as well. So that's a nice segue into tonight, because our guest is Dr. Kieran Kennedy. He is a psychiatry doctor, mental health and mental health advocate. He's a fitness nut, writer, speaker for TV and print media. I've had a sort of chat online with him previously, and he also did a great blog for us in our Dr. Perfect series as well. So I'm going to bring in Kieran right now.
Thanks so much for having me, mate.
Welcome. How are you?
Good. I'm very good. I was going to say I appreciate that segue in from the Feed Our Medics, because I'm looking a bit tired and like I need a bit of feeding. So that's much appreciated.
So tell us about your day. Let's go really micro.
Yeah, that's a good call. The typical day at the moment at the hospital is not so typical. So it was another busy day. And my day job at the moment is a bit of a mixture of management type stuff at the moment, in terms of I'm helping the psychiatry department at the hospital I work at look at how we're sort of streaming our services and rostering our doctors and things at the moment, in terms of how things have hit with COVID-19. So I did a bit of that today, a few Microsoft Teams meetings that I'm still trying to work out how to use that thing. And then at the moment, I'm also working in a service where I see patients on the medical and surgical wards at the hospital who are also struggling with some aspect of their mental health, which is my passion kind of area, is that grey zone, if you would call it that, between physical health and mental health. So seeing people that maybe because of epilepsy or brain tumors, or because they've gotten a really nasty infection, they've had their mental health affected by those things. So
that's incredible. I didn't think, having working in healthcare for the last decade and knowing a fair bit about mental health, how it works, and I never thought of that, the bit in between. I just assumed, okay, here's the mental health department, here's psychiatry, and this is very kind of separate, and that doesn't apply to anyone else in the hospital. So that's quite amazing.
No, so the kind of the area that I guess I'm sub-specializing in my psychiatry work is that area, that in-between area where mental health is overlapping into physical health and physical health's overlapping into mental health. So it's a challenging area, but it's really, really fascinating and rewarding. So so it's been a busy day, but a very good day. So
good. Well, I'll make sure Jimmy knows. I'll get where you work afterwards, and you can. We'll make sure feed our medics get to your hospital.
Send us some food while we're running around in there.
They look really good, actually. I saw some of the posts and stuff they were sending, so I'll make sure to do that. So tell us go back a little bit, I guess. Tell us about a little bit about your background, upbringing, and I guess what led you into becoming a doctor and then psychiatry.
So I guess I'm originally from New Zealand. You can probably pick up from the accent for those that are listening. So I grew up in sort of a rural town in New Zealand, and did all my sort of school and things there. Grew up on a farm initially. So I think always really liked animals and nature to start with. So initially thought that I might want to be a vet for a long time. So I think I was always interested in helping other people or animals in some form. And then as I went through sort of college and high school, sort of realized that I really liked to kind of to talk and connecting with people. So I thought that I would shoot for medicine. Did a psychology degree first, and sort of stumbled into that from a random sort of first psychology class, and just absolutely fell in love with it and was fascinated by it. So did a full degree in psychology, and then went into medical school from there. And the rest is kind of history, I guess. I've sort of worked my way through that lemon mountain of years that it is to go through medical school, and then you pop out as an intern where you sort of do your initial rotations in surgery and medicine, and I did a bit of plastic surgery and emergency medicine, but always knew that mental health and psychiatry was what I was made for. So started my specialist training to become a psychiatrist, and fingers crossed, all going ahead, we'll be done with that by the end of the year. So we're very nearly at the end of that sort of specialist training journey. So
and how did you when did you come to Australia, or why did you choose to come?
So I've been here for about 2.5 years now. So not too long in the grand scheme of things.
It's nothing.
It's gone very fast, I can tell you that. And moved to Melbourne, and really, I guess I moved here because towards the end of our psychiatry training, you can choose a sort of a subspecialist area to, I guess, specialize in, really. And that sort of physical health, mental health interface was what I'd always been fascinated by. I'm really incredibly sort of interested in the brain, sort of the neurology side of things and how that interacts with mental health. And so Melbourne was sort of the place to be for that in terms of that training and finishing off my specialist training. So decided to jump the ditch and sort of finish off my training here. So it's been awesome.
Excellent.
I won't sort of say it too loudly for my Kiwi family and everything back home, but I'm a little bit of a Melbourne convert at the moment. I love it here, and the hospital that I work at is fantastic and stuff. So it's been great.
Well, I heard today that Melbournians, I think they say they're doing better than us Sydney-siders at isolating.
Oh, okay.
And it didn't surprise me because when I've got out for a walk or come back, I've done pretty good to stay inside most of the time. When I've got out to do my exercise, or I've seen some areas around me where I think people just still think it's the same, like it's the same thing going on, and people, I don't know, it's a strange one.
Really? Is it the weather, you think? I wonder if we're used to
maybe it's been incredible
here in Melbourne. We're used to it being cold and not being able to go to the beach.
I had the same discussion in our online barbecue with some of the guys on Sunday, because we've had to revert everything to online. And one of the guys said he's getting really frustrated. He said, I've never seen so many bloody people with dogs and like going out for these walks. And we were just talking about the irony of previously. I saw a meme the other day about people inside, a family sitting around on their iPads like pre-COVID. And then after COVID, everyone's out. He sees like 50 dogs on his walking tour. And I guess we were talking about, it's actually quite nice, the connection of people are talking when they're out from a safe distance. But even my neighbours and people around, they are connecting well, which is good. I guess,
and I agree with that. And I guess I'll get on my doctor's soapbox a little bit, of course, and be like, well, of course we need to be social distancing and avoiding going out if we can help it. But I've noticed that too. Even in the apartment block that I live in, the other night I heard, a couple of neighbours like talking long distance to each other from their balconies. And I've never heard that before. So I think just the fact that we're all collectively going through this, incredibly stressful sort of crisis period is, like you say, sort of driving connection in some ways, which is really, really interesting.
And the patients you're dealing with at the moment, or if you are seeing some, how are they coping? Is there any particular... Did you see any major difference, or does it really matter because they were going to be in hospital, or what's the kind of general vibe?
No, I think, across the week, my job is sort of that inpatient work with patients that are admitted to the medical hospital, but also I'm still doing some outpatient clinics. And obviously that's all gone online now via telehealth, which is interesting, I think, especially in psychiatry, trying to connect with someone through a screen rather than in person. But no, so I'm still seeing people that are at home or outside of the hospital. And I think in general, those of us who have, I guess been lucky enough not to struggle with our mental health are feeling the stress and the anxiety of what's happening. And I think a lot of people that may have already been feeling in a bit of a tight spot with their mental health. A lot of people I've talked to, it has been a really difficult period because all this change and the anxiety and worry around COVID, that can be pretty unsettling from the mental health side of things. So, people have been quite anxious about what's going on, understandably, and it's, for all of us, it's really sort of, it's brought about massive change in our everyday lives and routines, hasn't it? So it's it's quite unsettling.
And it's complex. It's complex because I know I was really worried when this first came about, and I was thinking, how am I going to cope? Like my anxiety at times not great, and I thought, is this going to trigger something? Is this going to make something? But thankfully, in touch wood, it's been. I've found it. I've been able to be fairly productive and just focus on the things that I thought just
Yeah.
before it happened. I felt like I wasn't being present enough in certain situations, and I had a lot going on and multiple commitments. So, and now I'm finding actually I'm a lot more. We talked about optimism a lot in our community page recently.
Yeah,
it's actually forced me. I wasn't putting it on. I think people thought, someone said to me in one of the videos, it was like first thing in the morning, and I was talking about optimism. I definitely felt optimistic, but it didn't look like I did.
Yeah.
But I was very clear. I said, at the moment, I'm feeling optimistic that it's going to bring a lot of people together. However, it's very easy for me to say that when it hasn't affected my job too much. It will do soon, maybe, but not too much. I have a roof in my head. I have a family. I have the things I need. So it's really sensitive and complex to be too telling people, and I've seen this all over social media, you know, this is the time to like get stuff done and be, you know, whatever.
I've seen
I know when I was in my bad states,
Yep.
literally someone brushing my teeth would be, you know, now do that when you haven't got a job to go to, or this is, that can't be, you know, it can't be good.
Amen. And I think that's something that I have talked to people a little bit about as well, because you're right. I think with everything that's happening and you know, kind of this, all this hashtag isolation, hashtag stay at home kind of stuff, which is what we need to be doing, you know, from a keeping ourselves and our neighbors and everyone safe in terms of COVID. But there has been a bit of that pressure sort of online and on social media, hasn't there? That sort of that, okay, well, if you're at home and you're not, you know, learning to become a painter like Van Gogh, or you know, like getting ripped from working out at home, you know, if you're not using this time productively, then you're wasting it, kind of thing. And I think what we really don't need right now is the added pressure of that. You know, I think when collectively as a country, and then as communities and as families and as individuals, we're going through a very sort of stressful, really unprecedented time that none of us have ever had to go through before. You know, it's actually okay to just have that as enough right now. I think, you know, just keeping ourselves well and coping with everything that's going on around us right now is enough. And so people, I don't think, should be feeling pressured to be, you know, incredibly productive or you know, doing all this stuff while they're at home, if they feel that just kind of getting through this period and sort of staying on top of things mentally and physically is what they need to be doing. That's more than enough. Like that's the ultimate job in itself, in my books. So yeah, it's interesting how that's come about, hasn't it? Yeah,
it's really difficult because I listen to a lot of podcasts about and all sorts of things. So healthcare is obviously one of the big ones I listen to, health technology, mental health, of course. And then I also I go through bursts of listening to a lot of stuff about, you know, motivators and Silicon Valley startup stuff, because I'm just intrigued by the whole psychology of that world, right? So it's buzz, but the reality of it is very different, right? So I listen to some people saying, like to Gary Vaynerchuk and people like Gary Vee, and I really get what somebody's saying, but other times it's almost a celebration of now, like saying this is brilliant. Like we should be just doing this now, and that is a little bit too far for me. It made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I just thought, I don't know, like we get through this now. Like for me, it's a bit of a blur. So at the moment, it's kind of I don't feel uncomfortable right now. I'm sure in a month when maybe this sets in a bit more and things do change and start to squeeze a little, or you know, it's going to take a long time for things to get to normal again. But
100%.
I do worry about other people. I worry about other people currently not getting mental health care or not getting enough of it also. And I guess I was going to ask a question was, one of the questions I wanted to ask, with your current patients or ones you've had previously, actually, how do you find they best connect to you to open up, or what's a good way? How do they respond to you, or how do they connect well to you, or some instances or examples?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, and I guess, I mean, this is like, I really love what you guys are doing, and it's so, you know, really humbling to get the invite to come and chat with you tonight. because obviously there's a focus on men's health and men's mental health with you guys and what you do, and that's something that I'm really passionate about and have always been quite driven to I guess connect with in my work. You know, and I think for me, I mean, you mentioned very kindly in that little intro at the start a few of the different things that I do, and I guess for me, one of the ways that I've particularly felt that I've kind of connected particularly with men who are struggling with mental health, and why that's kind of an interest area for me, is because I think I do have a lot of different things that I'm sort of involved with and passionate about alongside my medical sort of career and psychiatry work. And I think using some of those things sometimes as openers to connection is a good way that I've found to kind of just spark that sense of connection with patients and sort of helping, especially men who are coming for mental health struggles, helping them to sort of relax into it a bit. Because, you know, I think for everyone, men and women, but especially men, it can actually be really hard to open up and connect to a healthcare professional about mental health. And I think that is because there still are, you know, there's a lot of stigma flying around with mental health for men and women. But I think particularly for men, a lot of that stigma kind of aligns quite well with some of those sort of those stereotypes of what it means to be a man, you know, in terms of opening up about mental health, talking about our feelings, connecting with someone, especially a stranger, for example, if they're coming to see me in a clinic about those things. It's all pretty threatening in some ways. And so I think for me, one of the ways I've found that I can really sort of help diffuse that and connect with people is at least starting that connection by just kind of, I guess, showing a little bit more of a human side to me, maybe. And I mean, part of the reason I've come into doing a bit of writing and speaking work was initially because of some of the things that I was doing in fitness. So I've done quite a bit of fitness stuff, and I haven't for a little while now, but was kind of right into competitive bodybuilding for a while. And have done sort of all that side of things, which I think people find quite out of the box for a doctor working in psychiatry. They're kind of like, what? And that was really interesting because that was a way that I first started seeing this connection with a lot of kind of particularly younger guys that were wanting to talk about their mental health and wanting to open up about some of this stuff. So I would have people at the gym or at bodybuilding shows or fitness events coming up to me and saying, it would always be a bit of a whisper to start with, as if it was some kind of secret. I hear you're a doctor that does mental health stuff. Is that true? And then I'd say, well, yes. And then we'd get into this conversation. They'd say, oh, I'm worried about my girlfriend, or I've been experiencing this for the last couple of months. Do you think that could be anxiety? And then on the flip side, in my medical work as well, if I was seeing men or people in clinic, we might initially start talking about something to do with physical health or fitness or running or the gym. And I think, I don't know, I think that has been a really interesting way that especially men struggling with mental health kind of sort of things have I think sort of felt that there's a little bit of a connection there outside of the hospital, and that kind of opens up a bit of a door for us both to feel, I guess, like we're maybe on a little bit of equal ground, or there's not that kind of doctor-patient sort of thing. And I think for all across medicine, I think that's the key to sort of connection between patients and doctors, is kind of getting rid of any of that sense of I'm the patient, he's the doctor, or because at the end of the day, you're two humans just kind of coming together to connect about some really complex, tricky stuff. And the key with mental health is actually just getting it out there and getting it off your chest to start with. So,
I was going to ask you, that's what was going to be obviously knowing that you're into fitness and was quite heavily as well. Now I know the bodybuilding is incredible. I didn't know that. It's amazing. Yeah. I knew you were in good shape, but wow, that's amazing. So for me, is going to be my question, because we've had a couple of guests on now who do, for example, 2 weeks ago, a guy who runs this thing called Uncle's Men, Tim, he also plays for my football team. He uses exercise and fitness and those sort of events to bring everyone together. And we basically we all agreed that although the science is there to say, yes, exercise is good for your mental health, it's not going to cure like sudden serious mental illness. We weren't suggesting that, but we were saying, if that's something that brings people together, that's amazing. That's just a vehicle. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. For us, it's the barbecue. For someone that might be running, for someone that might be football, for someone, it just so happens, and I don't want to, to push it too much with our group, because not everyone's into sport and fitness and whatever. But fitness to them could be walking. Like, I love walking at the moment. Proper old man about it. Like, I'm not, my body's not in great shape at the moment. My back's terrible. So I'm just walking a lot. And I love it. And that's great for me. And I went out unplanned with my wife at lunch break when we wanted to get out, because of what's going on at the moment. And I come back and I go, wow, that half an hour walk, that feels incredible. So I guess that's what I was leading in to say. You've obviously found fitness as exercise, whatever, like however we sort of label it, as a great connector. Do you, when you talk to patients, or I guess anyone really, how do you broach that with them? Is that a question you ask them? Do you say, like, do you exercise, or have you tried?
I really commonly do, and obviously that's something that's close to my kind of heart personally as well. Definitely. But I mean, as you touched on, the really fascinating thing about this mind-body interface is that kind of our clinical and academic knowledge about how that works has really kind of come forward leaps and bounds, especially in the last sort of 10 years or so. And so, as you say, if someone is really, really in a tight spot, no one, including me, is going to say, okay, just go for a walk around the block and that's going to fix things. Like, of course not. But if someone is in a space where they can be doing that, and you're right, even just a walk, there's clinical evidence there that, it doesn't have to be bench pressing in a gym or running half marathons every day. It can be sort of as little as a regular walk or some form of light physical activity. Those things can kind of be a significant addition to that foundation of our mental health. And at the lower level end of things, particularly with depression and anxiety, the clinical evidence and the research for how exercise and physical activity can positively impact our mental health is pretty staggering. When it comes to mild depression and anxiety, studies actually show that a regular exercise routine can be as effective as an antidepressant in some cases for mild depression, which is just really fascinating. And so talking to patients about that is something I definitely do, and especially for depression and anxiety. As you kind of brought in there, the hard thing is that I get that as a mental health doctor. I get that if you're anxious or depressed, someone saying, hey, get up and go for a walk or go for a run, that is far easier said than done a lot of the time. And so I'm really careful there as well to say that, this isn't an added pressure of you need to be getting up and going to the gym if your mental health isn't in that space, but working towards things and kind of increasing that physical activity gradually can have a really big impact. So I might work with people in clinic to say, if they're in a pretty tight spot, we might work out a plan to just walk down to the letterbox and get the mail 3 times a week, and that amount of physical activity compared to nothing is at least a step along the way, and that can start some forward movement to help with mood and anxiety. So definitely,
as a nice and as a bridge, I'm thinking about it as you're saying it, with some of the groups I know in mental health at the moment, and some that I've spoken to recently, I've kind of mapped them out, and ones that are non-clinical, and there's one called the Man Walk, where literally it's set up like ours. It's almost like a mirrored story, like 90% is the same. Set one thing up because one guy went, going to go for a walk with my mate early on a Friday morning, gets to the beach because he's struggling. And they walked and ended up walking 10Ks or something, chatting away.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they have a coffee afterwards and whatever. They went really early. And they both went, "That's pretty cool." And then, they put a little advert out for people to come along. And then next thing you know, they got 10 in their group, and it grew. And then now I think they have something ridiculous, like 60 or 70 locations.
Wow.
And these are guys of all shapes and sizes, older guys, younger guys who admittedly say, "I've let myself go like too many beers over the years and bad and whatnot." And then now they're getting to a stage where something has occurred in their life that then is an extra pressure, and they swear by it. Like it's not, it doesn't have to be. They're not sprinting. They're not doing like you said, stresses, birthdays. They're going for a bloody long walk, and in that time, talking. There's not that direct eye contact. It's not too awkward.
100%.
And in the community with people who they'll make friends out of it, like people who have similar things. I like the incremental thing about it. Anything is good, right?
Definitely. And I think that's what, and obviously all of this discussion, is not just limited to men, like all of these things obviously translate to women as well. But I really think for a lot of guys, physical activity and exercise and sport is kind of the way that kind of we've been brought up to connect in a way, and that for a lot of men is I think can be a bit of a sacred space or a safe space in terms of, like I say, if you're doing something physical with a mate, like it's not uncommon that you'll be doing something like a walk or a run, and that's when you'll be connecting and like talking about some of the stresses going on at work and things like that. And so I think particularly when it comes to some of that mental health stigma for men and difficulty opening up, I think kind of adding that physical element to it can just kind of help that flow a little bit more. And as you say, it's kind of the connection and the social contact there as well, which is why, the barbecues for you guys and the walks there as that example, one of the big things from it, and from exercise in general is the social connection we get to it, because even at the gym, if guys are sort of more the gym rat type like me, it's often, depending on how you like to work out, can be a bit of a social place. You're seeing people there and having a chat with them, or getting someone to spot you and things like that. So it's that social connection too, isn't it?
And there's an excellent, I'll pull it up on the screen now. Peter commented about being so busy with work. I totally relate to this, being so busy with work. That causes the stress and the anxiety. So then the thought of actually getting out for even half an hour, like for me, I make excuses in my head for that as well. And he says he can't get over it if he uses it for a run. It says time to work. So it's my question to you is going to be based on that. How do you get the motivation, or how do you suggest people get that motivation to at least get out for that? I mean, I'm not talking about people with serious mental, with mental illness, maybe in a state where it's just that they know it will be good for them, but
and they want to get into it.
But how do you get the motivation, and how do you think others should?
I mean, it's hard, and some weeks I'm terrible with it in terms of it's not always perfect, that's for sure. Because obviously work with the hospital and everything else, sometimes that just takes over. But I guess, I mean, it was during medical school that I first really started getting into exercise and fitness and stuff at the gym, and I really started to get into it and fall in love with it, because for me, it was something that I noticed for my mental health and my stress levels and my sleep and everything was just a game changer. So I kind of recognized that for me, prioritizing that is really, really helpful. But like that comment sort of says, it's bloody hard. And when you've got a job, you've got a family, you've got kids, you know, you're not in that place where you can kind of just get home from work and say, okay, I'm going for an hour's gym session by myself now, see you later. So it's really tricky. And I guess something that keeps me motivated with it is, I guess, scheduling it and recognizing that for me, it is as much a priority as work is, for example. And that balance doesn't always work out. But, you know, I think we spend a lot of time in our day scheduling all those other things for work and for this and for that. And the things that we let slide often when things are busy are the things for ourselves, like, you know, a walk or sleep, you know, prioritizing sleep or our diet. You know, some of those health basics are some of the first things that slip when we're really busy.
Just to make, after all the reading I do around this and things I come across and people speaking to people like yourself, the basics are just like the pillars, right? The fundamental things that I know 100%. If I look back the week before and go, God, I was in a bad mood that one. Worse than a bad mood, but you know, all the things I didn't do that week, like literally didn't eat properly. Like, that's one thing for me. Like I won't eat properly, so I literally just won't eat that much. So I've got zero energy, or I missed that morning walk, or I missed doing something, or I don't drink enough water, or I don't reach out to a mate. Like the real basic stuff, the pillars where you should be starting, right? Instead of, a lot of people will jump to like the big thing and think that they have to do something, you know, extravagant to get to that point.
100%, and I think that was what and I mean, even starting there, even starting small, I get can be really, really hard for a lot of people, especially when your day is just chock-a-block with work and family and all these other competing things. But I think that's the key, that you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's not about taking in the sense of pressure of, oh my God, well now, you know, now I've got this doctor telling me that I have to be flipping finding an hour in my day to go for a massive walk, or I have to be going to the gym and bench pressing. It's not about that. It is, I think, you know, if you can sort of nut out in yourself that this is something that I want to do, and I want to schedule it in as part of my week, even if to start with that's 3 times a week. And if you can say, okay, well, realistically right now I've maybe only got 15 minutes in the evening, or maybe I've got half an hour during my lunch break at work. And again, you don't have to be running a marathon around the park.
I do like a 15-minute thing at lunch, or a 20-minute. There's a guy called Sean Veig, who's he's very funny on YouTube. Just type Sean Vegan, V-I-G-U-E. He's basically used to be a yoga trainer to like stars and stuff, and like funniest guy ever. Like he makes you laugh the whole way through, which is probably not a great thing when you try to breathe properly, concentrate. But he does it out on his back. Yeah, it's hilarious. And my wife can't stop laughing. He does it out on a balcony in Colorado, like this beautiful background, and 15 minutes, and he's got it down pat. Like every couple of days, he posts a new, just slightly variation what he does. And for me, that appeals so much, because 15, 20 minutes, my feet up, I'm anxious that, can't take the hour lunch break. Someone's going to be ringing me in this next day. So that's the way I've tried to get it down. And if I do that 2-3 times a week, that's a good start. Like it's,
and like you say, even if it was 15 minutes to just go and walk outside around the office or around the block for 10 or 15 minutes, that's better than not doing it. And if all we have time for is 10 or 15 minutes to walk 3 or 4 times a week, you know, that alone can have some mental health benefits, and we're going to be in a better place than if we didn't take the 10 minutes. So, you know, I think it's really important that we point out to people that you don't have to be taking on a sense of pressure or guilt if there's not an hour in your day to be doing full-on intense exercise. Compared to no exercise or physical activity, even 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a week is going to be better than not at all. So it's kind of acknowledging how important it is, and then just seeing where and how we can fit that in realistically, and knowing that can still drive some benefits. So
No, I love it. It's a great takeaway, and it's something I've been trying to do, but it's something that
Yeah.
will be a bit more religious now, that's for sure. One of our barbecue hosts, Jimmy, the guy's actually doing the Feed Medics. He had a couple of questions for me, and he didn't comment in time, but he's just sent them to me now. I'll read one of them for you. He said, what were the, I guess, three things, three, but you can name as many or little as you like, that you would recommend to be aware of or monitor to ensure that you're kind of you're okay, or you're on par, or not, be it, he gave an example, insomnia, like waking in the middle of the night or something. What are the couple of things you'd say, like, to keep an eye on?
In terms of how your mental health is doing?
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that, because that's a tricky thing, isn't it? Like, when it comes to our physical health, obviously not always the case, but when it comes to our physical health, it's often easier to know that something's not right.
Yes.
Like we have a physical pain somewhere, or we can see that bloody rash or lump or whatever it is. It's not the same with mental health. So that's like a brilliant question, because it's kind of like, well, how do we know how we're doing? What's the barometer? And I sound probably like a bit of a broken record, but I think, again, it is bringing it back to those basics for me.
Yeah.
And obviously the area that I'm really passionate about in mental health is that crossover between physical health and mental health. So I think some of those basic physical things can actually be a really good indicator of how things are going mentally. And obviously you brought up an example of sleep, and that is kind of one of the keys. And that's something that I talk to people a lot about using as a bit of a barometer for how we're doing mentally. I think if our sleep is changing, or we're not able to sleep as much as we used to, our sleep becomes very broken. I mean, those can be signs that something with our mood or our anxiety levels is kind of becoming a little unsettled. So I talk to people about sleep being a really good way that we can protect and boost our mental health if we prioritize our sleep, but it can also be a good barometer to kind of look back across a week and think, well, how am I sleeping? And maybe is that an indicator of what's happening for me mentally? Diet can be another one. And I mean, you mentioned, Terry, that you notice if, it's been a stressful week or a bit of a tough week, that your appetite and diet sort of can be one of the first things to go off. And that's something that's really common for people. And I think something that people are probably experiencing a bit of right now. I think particularly when it comes to anxiety and worry, I mean, obviously our body kind of goes into that fight or flight mode, doesn't it? At a baseline level. So one of the things that can be kind of switched off or changed quite quickly is our appetite and our eating. So, if you're usually a pretty good eater and a regular eater, and you have a healthy appetite, but you notice that your food intake or your appetite's dropping off, you're not eating regularly, that can be a good way to keep check of how we're doing mentally as well. And I think maybe the third one would be to stay open and connected to the people around us as well. I think one of the keys with mental health, and obviously one of the things the thing that you guys are all about and you push, especially here, is about connection with others. So it can be really, really hard, even with our closest ones and our girlfriends, wives, children, best friends, whoever it is, if they're saying, "Oh, I'm a bit worried about you," or "Are you all right?" That can be hard. Like, that can be any combination of frustrating, irritating, confronting.
I get it a lot.
Yeah, but I think the sign of a good wife.
Or she just kind of knows it's coming, or
yeah, and that can be hard, but I think opening ourselves to also using those people that are our weatherboards, and using the people in our lives who do know us the best. If they're noticing changes or they're concerned, then opening into that and recognizing that that's actually a sign of a real, more often than not, a really strong connection and someone that really cares for us, rather than something that needs to be threatening. So taking that on board as a bit of a barometer as well to how we're doing, I think is really helpful.
As you're saying, I'm thinking of people like mates or not even, or people I met through Mr. Perfect that, you know, when I'm struggling, like the last thing I feel energy to do is to go, okay, how's 100 other people, and like have that, you know, the risk of someone saying, actually, I'm not okay, and what can you do? I bounce through that guilt of like not being able to help everyone as much as I can, but then shit, I'm not helping myself right now, and I'm feeling crap. Like, how I'm going to be useless to like everyone else. So I try and do it when I'm on that, not high, but I have the energy of feeling good, content space and doing the right things. That's normally when I'll reach out to people. So it's a great point. I've just thought of a couple of people that I would go, even people I'm not particularly close to, but I just noticed slight changes, or they haven't contacted us through the Mr. Perfect page, or I haven't seen them chat like recently. That's a brilliant one. I love that. That's excellent. So the other, I guess, to sort of wrap up, I know you got 1,001 things to do probably before you go.
I'm good for at least anher 10 or 15 minutes.
Well, there was a couple more things I was going to ask you. So I guess addressed a couple of the questions from guys there, but what advice, one, would you give the guys out there when engaging with a doctor as yourself? But also, I guess, your final thoughts on, again, it might be a top 3, or it might be, like you just mentioned there, on connecting generally, or, you know, the things they should be doing as their basics, I guess, to connect to others.
And I guess when it comes to the doctor thing, or the reaching out for professional help, that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that's, you know, that's obviously the kind of key thing that I'm pretty passionate about with this kind of stuff, is advocating for that, especially for men, to be doing that if they're in a space where they need to. And I guess in terms of that connection there, it's really, you know, I don't want to say this and make it sound like too much of a cliche, because we do hear it all the time, you know, that whole, it's okay to reach out for help, and you know, and mental health struggles aren't weakness, and all that type of thing. But, you know, I think that particularly for men, that's something that we're still grappling with a little bit. And so I think it is kind of taking on board that reaching out for help, and whether it's just mentioning it to your GP, or it's agreeing to, you know, finally kind of put that psychology referral through with your doctor. Whatever it is, I think it's kind of opening ourselves into the fact that this is just as valid and real, as important as the physical side of things, you know. And so if we're okay to go to the GP or the doctor to get that weird tummy thing sorted, or to look at that weird rash that's kind of, you know, down there, you know, we really need to be kind of putting aside that little thing in our mind that says it's somehow not the same, to be kind of opening up to a health professional about those other things. So
absolutely,
I think my main kind of piece of advice there would just be, you know, don't be afraid to start the conversation, and, you know, don't take on a sense of pressure in terms of oh my gosh, I need to know exactly what's going on, or exactly what's wrong, or what kind of help I need to be able to bring it up with my GP, for example, because that's not the case. You know, I think through medical school these days, and through doctors training, regardless of what type of doctor you're seeing, whether it's your GP, it's your surgeon, it's, you know, doctors are very well trained at picking up things now. And, you know, sometimes it can just be a signal. It can just be enough for someone to say to their health professional or their doctor, I'm actually a bit worried that I'm not doing okay, or I wonder if I've been struggling with anxiety, and just kind of let them take it from there if that's what you're most comfortable with. I think a lot of people feel a sense of pressure to have to kind of have it all sorted out in our head, and to be able to explain it, and explain exactly what we're feeling and why, and oh my God, what if they asked me what my childhood was like and what my mum was like, and
you would not believe how many times I hear friends and
yeah.
others if they've gone to a different professional or psychologist, let's say, and they're so worried about going over again. And
Yes. Yeah.
Just the way I sort of pathologize stuff, and my psychologist laughed because I went to him, the second one I went to, gave him literally, I went, like having an online, having the health record, whatever, my health record now, whatever, I won't go to that sort of at the moment, but I was very cognizant if I was going to a new professional, I was like, man, I'm going to have to go all again. There's no transfer of this immediately to them. So I just wrote down on a Google Doc, like my whole, so here's my whole physical thing. Here's my whole thing. Kind of don't ask me about it, but here it is, just say it. And he was laughing. And although he said that was quite funny, he thought it was, he'd not seen that. He said, well, not often. He said, actually, it was quite useful for you to download that for me. And he said, just be sure, like, just be cognizant. We're not actually going to go over like every single one of these things because some of it's just not relevant or not helpful or not moving you forward. So, and he just put it back, put that way, and went, "This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to move forward."
And it's okay to be entering that conversation and moving forward with kind of mental health support as it fits and works for you. So, like you say, some people, they very much would like to really go in and explore those things from the past and get into the nitty gritty there. That might work for them. For other people, they might be a little bit more, okay, I'd quite like to just focus on what's happening now and maybe strategies and techniques and things that are going to help. Some people might want to discuss medication. Other people might not want to have a bar of medication at all. So just as all of our mental health is very unique and varied, it's okay to be taking that same approach when it comes to opening up and connecting to your doctor or to a health professional about it too. So
I think that's comforting to know, actually, what to think about as a point for everyone. Again, we're all at different stages, journeys. Like, it's complex. Some are ready, some are not. Some have had professional help, some haven't. And I think the point would be, I've said it before about finding a good health professional, or maybe you don't have the choice if you've got into somewhere. Have a little bit of trust that maybe they're gonna. It's not for you to work out all the time where you're at. I guess, like, if you enter that conversation with them, then you're pretty sure. Like my psychologist did, he pointed out, well, actually, we don't need to go. Like, you've come to that point. You're just having trouble getting over this hump. Like this hump, you're just going round and round on it. So we can address some of this, but I'm pretty sure this is not the real stuff that's the issue at the moment. And he was 100%. Right. He was, given
exactly. And if that works for you and that's the place you're in right now as the best way to move forward, then I think that's completely fine, obviously. So I think keeping that in mind when all those kind of little voices and anxieties and stuff about reaching out or opening up the conversation to get help there can be really helpful.
Amazing. That's excellent, mate. And where can, if you want them to find you, where can everyone find you online?
So I do. So I have it's more of just a bit of a landing page at the moment, but I do a bit of writing and blog stuff as well. So I have a website, which is just drkierankennedy.com. But probably most of the stuff that I throw up now is probably via Instagram, which is just Dr. Kieran Kennedy. And I do, some mental health education stuff. And, I do a bit of writing for different places like Men's Health magazine and things like that. So I kind of throw the links up to my articles and stuff there. And so if people aren't completely sick of hearing me ramble on about stuff, that's where they can check some of that out if they want to. So
it's been great. No, I recommend. I follow you and been reading a lot on it, and just the reason I reached out, really, the way you approach it is very personable and very on the level. I think we talked about it before we came on. The level of, you're just one of us. You just happen to be done a lot of study into a particular field that
somehow for my sins I've put myself through years in the library. But no, and I think like that's a really good point to end on, because you know, obviously, just like all of us, every doctor is different. Every doctor is their own person. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to opening up and maybe reaching out for help or thinking about talking to a mental health professional about this stuff, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. You know, that you know, yes, this person might have some kind of thing attached to the start of their name, or they might be sitting behind the desk or in the doctor's chair, but at the end of the day, it's just two people hopefully connecting and together coming up with a bit of a plan for how to make things better. And that doesn't always have to include, you know, medication in hospitals, because just like a lot of the things that we've touched on, it can just be hashing out some of those basics with someone as well, in terms of exercise, sleep, diet, connecting with sort of your family and loved ones. So yeah, no, I can definitely vouch that we are people. We are definitely people. So
thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I know you're a busy man, and again, generally, I think everyone would say thank you for the work you're doing right now. It's not easy. I'm sure it's appreciated, although maybe not everyone says it. It's definitely appreciated by us. So your wisdom tonight, everyone can watch this back afterwards, and I'll send the link around in the group. Everyone, please stay connected, and thank you, Kieran. Take care, mate.
Thank you so much, mate. Cheers. Bye.